Imagine walking into a room full of people who all seem so sure of themselves. They speak with certainty. They interrupt without hesitation. They offer opinions like facts, smile as they dismiss others, and radiate a kind of effortless confidence. And then, there's you. You second guess what you were about to say. You wonder if your perspective is missing something. You hesitate, not because you don't care, but because you do. Because you actually think. Because you listen. And in that silence, a question starts to form. Why do they seem so certain, while I feel like I'm never sure enough? Here's the truth, and it's uncomfortable. Your self-doubt may be the very sign that you're seeing more than they do. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is not just a psychological curiosity. It's a silent epidemic. It explains why those who know the least often shout the loudest. Why people with no idea what they're doing often lead, while those who actually understand hold back, question themselves, and wonder if they're the problem. But what if your uncertainty isn't weakness? What if it's a sign of intelligence, depth, and honesty? In this video, we'll explore the disturbing reality of the Dunning-Kruger Effect, how it plays out in your life, and why you might be the one who sees the truth, even when you feel like you're falling behind. We'll break down the psychology behind it, uncover what great philosophers saw coming centuries ago, and most importantly, we'll show you how to reclaim your confidence without losing your humility. Watch till the end, because if you've ever felt overshadowed by louder, shallower voices, this might be the clarity you've been looking for. You've probably seen it 100 times, in meetings, on social media, at school, in politics. The loudest person in the room, the one with the least insight, speaks with absolute certainty. Meanwhile, the quiet one with more depth hesitates, and the world listens to the one who speaks up first. That's the tragedy. In a culture obsessed with speed, performance, and confidence, we mistake assertiveness for intelligence. We don't reward thoughtfulness. We reward certainty, even when it's hollow. And here's the deeper pain. When you're actually self-aware, when you do think before speaking, when you're deeply aware of your limitations, the world may interpret that as weakness. You hold back, not because you're unsure of everything, but because you're aware of the complexity. You see the gray areas. You feel the weight of what's not being said. You don't want to be wrong, and you care enough to question yourself. But while you're hesitating out of integrity, someone else is stepping into the spotlight with nothing but overconfidence and a rehearsed tone. And people listen to them, not because they're right, but because they don't flinch. That's what makes the Dunning-Kruger Effect so devastating. It's not just about personal delusion. It's about how the world around us often rewards it. The ignorant appear confident. The thoughtful appear hesitant. And in the eyes of the crowd, confidence wins. So what happens? You start to doubt yourself even more. You compare your private uncertainty to their public certainty. You forget that their confidence may be a mask, and your doubt may be a mirror reflecting the truth. But you don't see that in the moment. All you see is that you're thinking too much, and they're moving ahead. The Dunning-Kruger Effect was named after two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who conducted a now famous study in 1999. What they discovered was simple and disturbing. When people perform poorly in a skill or subject, they not only make mistakes, they lack the ability to recognize just how poorly they're doing. In fact, those with the least knowledge or ability tend to dramatically overestimate themselves. Why? Because the very skills required to perform well, like critical thinking, self-awareness, or nuanced understanding, are the same skills needed to accurately assess your performance. If you lack those skills, you don't just fail. You don't even know you're failing. It's like being lost, but too disoriented to realize you're off the map. You don't ask for directions, not out of defiance, but because you're convinced you're already on the right road. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Those who are actually competent, who do understand the terrain, are often less confident in their abilities. Not because they're wrong, but because the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. Your mental map expands, and with it, the unknown grows larger. This creates a cruel paradox. The incompetent are full of certainty. The competent are full of doubt, and the world can't always tell the difference. The Dunning-Kruger curve illustrates this beautifully. When people first gain a small amount of knowledge, their confidence spikes. They think they've mastered the subject. But as they learn more and realize how complex it is, their confidence drops. Eventually, with true expertise, confidence rises again, but rarely to the inflated level it reached at the beginning. That's the path of wisdom. First, you think you know. Then you realize you don't. Only later do you earn the right to speak with grounded confidence. The danger is that most people stop at the first step. They mistake the illusion of understanding for the real thing, and they never go deeper. But if you're someone who's doubting yourself right now, that may be the sign you're already further along than you think. Think about how this shows up in everyday life. The coworker who explains your job to you without understanding it. The influencer who gives life advice based on surface-level ideas. The manager who confuses domination for leadership. They don't know what they don't know, and that makes them dangerously loud. Meanwhile, you stay quiet because you see more, because you know there's more to see, and that awareness is rare. Long before modern psychology named it, the Dunning-Kruger Effect was hiding in the works of ancient minds. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, said, "I know that I know nothing." To many, that sounds like a paradox, but it wasn't self-deprecation. It was insight. Socrates understood that the awareness of ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. Only those who question themselves can begin to learn. Only those who realize they don't have all the answers are capable of searching for truth. And then, there are those who never question anything, who don't even know there's a question to ask. This blindness, this illusion of knowledge, is far more dangerous than honest ignorance. Schopenhauer, centuries later, would write bitterly about intellectual arrogance. He warned that mediocre minds often succeed because of their confidence, not their capability. In a world that rewards boldness, truth becomes a casualty of appearance. The wise, he said, have always said the same things, and fools, who are the majority, have always done just the opposite. Nietzsche took it even further. He believed the masses don't seek truth. They seek comfort, and comfort is often found in certainty, not accuracy. The individual who sees clearly, who thinks differently, becomes a threat, so the crowd ridicules him, silences him, or ignores him. It is not truth that wins. It is the illusion of truth repeated loudly and often. And then there's Kierkegaard, who didn't write about intelligence but about despair. He described the worst kind of despair as not knowing you're in despair at all. The man living a lie, thinking he's happy. The man blind to his own suffering. That's what Dunning-Kruger is, in essence. The despair of not knowing you're wrong. The illusion of competence. The certainty of the unqualified. These thinkers, across centuries, all saw the same pattern. That most people are not wise. That wisdom, when it exists, is quiet. And that the world often follows those who speak loudest, not those who see deepest. But if you're still listening, if you're questioning, then maybe you're already in the minority they were writing for. Once you understand the Dunning-Kruger effect, once you really feel it, the first temptation is anger. You start seeing it everywhere. In your boss who speaks with authority, but doesn't understand the work. In influencers who spout advice with no depth. In politicians who lie with confidence. You start noticing how often the most clueless are also the most certain. But this realization is a dangerous place to stay. Because if you're not careful, your awareness turns into bitterness. You begin to see yourself as above others. You start resenting the world for not recognizing your thoughtfulness. You become the silent critic, smart, aware, and increasingly isolated. So, what do you do instead? You use it, not to elevate your ego, but to sharpen your perception. You stop taking confidence at face value. You start looking for depth beneath the performance. And most importantly, you begin to hold yourself to a higher standard, not of appearance, but of awareness. Because yes, you doubt yourself. And yes, that can be painful. But that pain can become precision. Yes, the world may still reward confidence over competence, but you can learn how to navigate it without selling your soul. The person who questions themselves isn't broken. They're refining something. They're learning to separate true competence from the illusion of it. They're learning how to move through the world without having to shout. This is where confident humility is born. It's not thinking you're worthless. It's knowing you don't know everything and still showing up. It's being open to correction. It's staying curious. It's choosing clarity over control. And slowly, this humility becomes strength. Because in a world of overconfident noise, quiet insight becomes power. Being thoughtful in a loud world is like being a lantern in a storm. Not the brightest light, but the one that lasts. So when others are speaking too soon, too loudly, too blindly, you're not falling behind. You're watching. You're learning. You're preparing to speak only when it matters. And when you do, you'll speak with something far more rare than confidence: clarity. Here's the truth no one likes to hear. You could be the fool. We all could. That's the terrifying power of the Dunning-Kruger Effect. You can't see your own blind spots until it's too late. But here's what separates you from the truly deluded. You care. You question. You're still searching. And that, by definition, puts you on the path of wisdom, even if you sometimes feel lost. Don't mistake your self-doubt for weakness. It's the beginning of mastery. Because when you doubt yourself, you create space for growth. When you hesitate before speaking, you give yourself time to think. And when you wonder if you're wrong, that's when you're closest to being right. Let the others chase confidence. Let them be loud, certain, untouchable. But you get to be real. You get to stay awake. Yes, it's harder. Yes, you'll be misunderstood. Yes, you'll watch others rise faster until they fall. But your path isn't about being first. It's about seeing clearly. It's about holding on to your self-awareness in a world that rewards illusion. It's about walking through that fog of false confidence and never forgetting who you are. So the next time you doubt yourself, don't panic. Don't shrink. Don't compare yourself to the loud ones. Instead, listen deeper, think clearer, and keep going. Because the world doesn't need more confidence. It needs more clarity. And it starts with you. If this resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to The Existential Edge for more videos like this.